When someone comes to you and they're paying you for what you're doing, you are viewed as the expert. And what do we
Yeah.
think as experts or those with experience? That we have to provide solutions, that we
Yeah.
have to provide an answer. But you don't really know what's right for someone until you understand their experiences, what they're going through, and what their relationship is with money.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Shine a Light. This is Christine Miles. My guest today is my colleague, my friend, a little bit of my superhero, Kate Duffy. Let me tell you a little bit about Kate before we jump in. I can't wait to talk to you. A certified financial behavioral specialist. That's deep. We're going to talk about that. Senior vice president and senior financial advisor with over 20 years of experience, which, by the way, if you see her, you won't believe it's been 20 years. Experience in portfolio management and financial planning. She holds a master's degree in financial planning and financial psychology, you show off, from Creighton University, along with advanced certifications in behavioral finance. This term is something that people haven't heard of always, so I can't wait to talk about it. Kate's approach is interpersonal, prioritizing the purpose and meaning of wealth beyond the analysis. Underpinning her expertise, she approaches planning with thoughtfulness, and this is a love letter, careful listening, going beyond numbers, uncovering the hidden beliefs shaping our relationships with money, and she helps her clients rewrite those money scripts. She empowers people to redesign their financial futures and achieve true financial freedom. And I'm just going to say this because I love this, Kate. You help people understand the mindset behind financial freedom and catch the invisible bandit that might be stealing their financial future.
I love that bit too, Christine.
That's good stuff. We had a conversation about that. So let's talk this in simple terms. You not only help people with their financial planning and wealth management, and wealth can be all different levels, right? Wealth is relative.
Yes.
But you help them understand what they believe about money so that they can really achieve their goals, because that gets in the way.
It does get in the way. So financial psychology is so incredibly interesting to me. It's basically where the mind and money meet. And it's really the study of like the psychological factors that affect our relationship with money, our beliefs, our experiences, the external influences, things that we've learned or inherited. And if you think about it, it makes a lot of sense because we don't learn about money in a traditional setting at all.
No.
It's our parents and our grandparents and our friends parents and our schools and our communities and our churches and television and social and influencers. There are all of these external factors that say this is what money should mean and this is what you should do with it.
Yeah. Well, I didn't learn about money through influencers because there were no influencers. Now we learn about money.
Add that in. That's why I keep television in there, because it was about TV when I was growing up.
Well, this is what money reminds me about a little bit as someone who comes from the field of psychology. And my father was a financial planner, by the way. So he grew up on a chicken farm.
I did not know that.
You didn't know that? He grew up on a chicken farm. His mother was an educator. His dad was a sales guy. My dad studied agriculture, sold chicken feed. And at the time when his father actually passed away at a pretty young age in his 50s, and my dad took over his sales portion of the business, he did so well that he got applied for some bigger jobs like at Connecticut General, where he sold life insurance and then turned that into a career, ultimately where he was serving mid-sized companies, financial planning for their people. Yeah. So it was quite a story. But look, even we talked a lot about money, but money's a lot like sex, like your education about sex. Do you learn it on the street? Do you learn it from your peers? Right. What age do you learn about it? And we don't necessarily, and church, right, depending, but we don't necessarily have these open conversations. So a lot of these beliefs are subconscious, right?
They are. And I was shaking my head at this the other day because it is still so surprising to me that our beliefs about money are generally fully formed when we are kids, like
Like most
young
things, like our personalities, like
kids.
like the beliefs about who we're going to be
Well,
in a relationship with. Like it makes sense, Kate. It's
it's
psychology.
it does make sense, but it's still, when you think about it, maybe it's also just those beliefs lying under the
Yeah.
consciousness for so long is maybe what's a little bit mind blowing
Well, it
because
is mind blowing what we really do shape what shapes us as early as it does, without us even having memories of it, is what you're describing.
right. And
Yeah.
having to go through adult experiences maybe over and over and over again until we realize, okay, there's something else that's happening here. Let me figure out what it is so I can move forward. I can, overcome whatever
Right.
obstacle that I'm facing. Because when we're kids, we straddle two different worlds. We have the reality that we're in
Yeah.
right now, like we both know that we're sitting in this reality, but there's also a very
Do we?
imaginative and creative world that kids live in. Like I
Yeah.
think about my niece who's 4 and she'll have like a little tea party and
Mhm.
there's nobody around. But she's pouring tea to all of her
Yeah.
friends around the table. And to us, nobody's there. But it's like, who are you having your tea party with? And she's like,
Yeah.
my friends,
Yeah.
friends. And when kids are confronted with difficult things, they sort of straddle the reality that they make in their creative world because they have more control. They have more
Mhm.
control there. They can make stories that make sense of what they're going through.
Yeah.
And that's what gets so deeply embedded in the fiber of our being that we carry forward into adulthood.
Well, and it depends, like, where you are in the birth order, where your family is in
Matters.
terms of their own relationship with money, their own, abilities with money. All of it is such but it's like any relationship. It's in our subconscious. We have to bring it
Right.
to the forefront. But you keep saying relationship with money, and that's
Mhm.
the key phrase, isn't it? We have a relationship. Sometimes we don't even know what attracts us to it. We don't know what it
Right.
means to us, what we want to do with it. That's part of the blessing and the curse, right?
It is, we as a financial planner, sometimes we use jargon that we try to get out of. I try to unlearn that myself. I've been in the industry for over
Thank you
20
for
years and
that.
you get
Yeah,
indoctrinated with some of this language and you're like,
sure.
okay, how do I unlearn it to make it simple, to make the complex simple? Because some of this doesn't have to be really complex.
Hmm.
Um, and what's really interesting about that, I absolutely totally just lost my train of thought.
That's okay. I'll help you. It's just I'm just that's it. We'll unpack that later. We'll lay you on the
Okay.
couch later. Well, it's so let me help you. So it is
Okay.
fascinating because it is subconscious. And we do have to go back and look at what's going on and why it's going on in order to really make it work for us. So I think about how much money isn't talked about, and how much, when you talk about the complicated words and jargon and all the things you were saying, it makes it more scary. So if you're someone
Mhm.
who doesn't know how or hasn't learned or talked about it, it's very fear based, isn't it? So we just kind of go on autopilot.
It is, because we watch what our parents do, and
Hmm.
that oftentimes informs our behavior. But I did thank you for that help. It
You're
looped me
welcome.
back to what I was thinking of. We talk a lot about, when we're talking with clients about money and what their values are
Mm,
around it. And the other day I was talking to a group of women and it was very clear. Like, if I ask you what your values are about money, you might sit there and shake your head and be like, well, I don't think about it that
yeah,
way.
yeah,
We don't actually think about it that way, but the way that we spend money expresses what our
yeah,
values
yeah,
are.
yeah,
And so that's the relationship. It's how are we expressing ourselves through our decisions and through financial transactions. You will see, we've heard this a lot. I've heard this a lot. Where you spend your money and where you spend your time is
right.
what is important to you. But
Absolutely.
sometimes we just don't stop and pay attention to that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and for me, like, I think when you're talking, I think about having been through something in my early 30s where I lost I lost my physical freedom for a while because I was in an accident. Time became the resource that I cared about more than anything because
Right.
I couldn't do the things I wanted to do. I mean, I could have had a really good time in my 30s if I was healthy and just off work, but it was such a grind. So it is it's what happens and how we value. These are not unlimited resources. No matter how much money you have, it's not unlimited. I
Right.
guess you can get to a point where it can feel unlimited, but I always say somebody has a bigger boat if you're sitting in the yacht club, right?
It's
So
very true.
it's not unlimited. Time is not unlimited. It's how we manage it. It's how we manage to that. So if we're on autopilot, we're probably making some mistakes, is what I hear you saying.
Right. You are hearing correctly.
Well,
And it
my book is in the
also
background, Kate. How could I not love you
it
more?
is. It's right here. What is it costing you not to listen? It's such an important skill. And you say this all the time, and I repeat it. It is something we are told to do, not taught to do.
Yeah.
And it's so important. And it's so important in my profession because what happens, I guess this is really for any professional, when someone comes to you and they're paying you for
Mm-hmm.
what you're doing, you are viewed as the expert. And what do we
Yeah.
think as experts or those with experience? That we have to provide solutions, that we
Yeah.
have to provide an answer. But you don't really know what's right for someone until you understand their experiences, what they're going through, and what their relationship is with money. Because
Yeah.
there are prescriptions for money out there. You can get them anywhere. You can get them on the
Yeah.
internet. What am I supposed
Especially
to do with my
now.
money? Right. And do people
Yeah.
take that advice? No, a lot of them don't because there's these hiccups. There's this relationship
Yeah.
with money that gets in the way. And if you don't listen to where someone is in the journey of life with money, you really can't help them. You can throw all of these sorts of
Yeah.
solutions at them, but it's not going to stick unless you work to understand their perspective and where they are.
Yeah. Yeah. My dad used to say he would talk a lot about his clients with me, and he'd tell me a lot of stories. And one of the very sad things, especially since he started in the insurance business, was how many clients' children were lost in bad
Right.
situations. And it just becomes so deeply personal. But he was actually trained as a financial planner and insurance agent this was in the 60s, 70s. So
Wow.
they really put time on task. You didn't just churn and burn in an organization. They taught you how to really
Right.
understand the client deeply. That's what he used to say. He said, you got to go beyond the family of origin. You got to go to aunts and uncles and cousins and grandparents. You got to understand the whole family tree because you need to understand the dynamics and the goals and all the underlying needs. This is what he would talk to me about from a pretty early age.
That's so interesting because that is so progressive for that point in time.
Yeah. Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah. He didn't say it the way you're saying it. He didn't say it around the psychology of money, but he was always looking for what he called them goals and needs
Hmm.
so that he could help them accomplish that. And he would say you can't just go with what their surface answer is, you got to find out. It's not a shock I'm in this profession necessarily
Right.
of the field of listening since I wasn't he actually asked me to go into his financial planning business. I said, I don't think we should work together, Dad.
Okay.
That's not a good idea. And you don't want me calculating numbers. I'm not detail oriented enough for that, even if I understand the big picture. So
Family dynamics can change a
yeah.
business, that's for
Yeah.
sure.
I just didn't think that would be healthy for us. But anyway, so it's just
Yeah.
interesting. So now we have the science behind this and the psychology because it's neuroscience and psychology, isn't it?
Right.
So tell us more
Yeah,
about
so
that.
it's the application of clinical psychology to financial decision making. And really in practice what that means is uncovering, like when I work with people, it's uncovering what some of those early money memories are. Um, and really sitting with that. It's someone has to be willing and ready to do it because it can bring up a lot. It can bring up a lot from childhood. You might start thinking about your parents' relationship with money and your grandparents and who was
Yeah.
around and what was happening. And dare I say, like a lot of people's experiences with money, it doesn't bring up the best of feelings. So it
No.
can be a challenging road to travel sometimes, but it is so it is so worth it. Finding financial psychology so far into my career is what really kept me here. I mean, I love what I do. I love working with people, but after a while, I was like,
You're not a formula person, Kate. You're not
what
someone who likes to just do the formula, even if you're good
right.
at it,
And
right?
it was I felt really lucky that I kind of stumbled into financial psychology because it was immediately like these are my people.
Well, hold on a second. Hold on a second. So I want to hear, how did that happen? So tell me the story. Tell us the story of how you stumbled into this, because I didn't
Oh my
stumble into
gosh,
that. So
it sounds silly. So, I had been in the industry for quite some time. The first firm that I worked at became like a second home to me. And the people that I worked with were, some of them are still really good friends. And I was there for nearly, I guess it was 14 years.
okay,
And we worked with entrepreneurs. We worked with people who had built and sold businesses for tens to hundreds of millions of dollars. So you
wow,
get a front row seat of the dynamics around wealth. And there's dynamics no matter where you are on the spectrum of
sure,
wealth.
sure, sure.
But I remember over and over having these conversations in my head. Like, we helped people a lot, and we did do a lot of the discovery and understanding what their family life was like growing up and how they interacted with money. But I would say to
But you didn't
myself,
have the
there's so
language
much
around it the same
more
way, right?
now.
Okay,
And it was recognizing that there was more that we could do to help, more that I could do to help people, I thought. But I was at a job, I kept my head down. I thought I was going to be there forever. Life throws curveballs,
hmm.
and then you end up shifting. And so
May
I
I
ended
ask
up
what
in
curveball?
another.
What happened?
Well, I got divorced.
Okay,
I
we
got
some of us
divorced
have
around
been through
that
that curveball.
time. Yeah.
That's so. I'm
And
sorry.
so that's okay. It was a time in my life where, things had to change.
Mm,
They had to change. And it was sort of like one of those surprises, but it wasn't at the
yeah,
same time.
yeah.
And so I went through a divorce, and then I shortly after that went through a transition at work, and I ended up leaving the firm that I was with
It's a lot
for
of
another
change.
firm. It was a lot of change, and this is the funniest story, and I feel so silly telling it, but it was in 2022, I think it was. I had a really bad case of COVID, and I was
Mm.
laid up for like a month. It was
It can be
two
wretched.
weeks.
Yeah,
It really can be. It was
yeah.
at the time. It was 2 weeks. I was on the couch, like dead to the world.
Mm.
And then on top of that, I got a sinus infection and bronchitis. And I'm not kidding. Out of one of these, I was in like what I called a COVID coma. I was on the couch, and I
Very
catapulted up, and I
dateable, by
was
the way.
like,
Very dateable. You're painting the picture of a single woman that every
beautiful.
man can't wait to go
Yeah.
out.
Dying on the couch. I'm sweating. And I just catapult up, and I'm like, financial therapy. And I was like, I wonder if that's a thing.
You
And
just had
then
this moment of financial
I
therapy?
did. I
Interesting.
did.
You were
It was
hallucinating.
it
Okay.
yeah, I was hallucinating. And then I started to do all this research. I'm like, I wonder if that's a thing.
Hmm.
And I started to reach out to people that I worked with. I ended up getting connected through to this professor at Columbia who was teaching some of this stuff. And I reached out to
Wow.
her, and I was like, tell me more. I was like, what is here? What can I do? Is this a thing? And she was like, oh, yeah.
It's a
And
thing.
she gave me the rundown of all the different programs that were out there, the schools. There weren't a ton of them, but there were a handful of accredited
Yeah.
schools, universities that had degrees in this. And so
So wait, I
I
just want to make sure I get you.
essentially,
So let me see if I get you. So you go through a lot of change, divorce,
mhm,
unexpected sort of career change, or not career change, but after being an employee of a certain place for a long time,
mhm.
and then you're in this physical stupor from COVID and bronchitis,
Yeah,
basically, but it sounds like you were almost so physically under the weather that your mind just you couldn't do anything, so your
hallucinated.
mind's just
I
churning,
did.
and all of a sudden you're thinking
Yeah.
about what the work really means to you, which is, it's not about the numbers, it's about the thinking behind the numbers.
Yeah, it's so much more, and it made so much sense at that time. I was at home alone for 30 days. So
Well,
yeah,
that'll
my
do
mind was
it.
going a
Yeah,
little
so your body couldn't keep up with what, but your
wonky.
mind's well. Sometimes I'm a believer, Kate. Now, I don't like to think everything that happens to us is great because it's not. But
Right.
this is the kind of thing that sometimes the universe speaks and comes to us for whatever reason, and so you listen to that like little part of you, and then you did something about it. You could have just said financial
I
therapy and then been like, yeah,
I wholeheartedly agree with you. I remember in the transition of my life, which was around 2017, there was one day that I was sobbing.
yeah,
But then there was this internal feeling of joy.
mm-hmm,
And I was like, what is that? Because
yeah.
I was in I was in a bad place.
Yeah,
And then I
divorce, even
was
if you need it,
like,
isn't fun.
no, it's really hard for everybody. And I remember saying to myself, I don't know why I feel this way right now, but every time I feel this way, I have to stop and pay attention to what I'm doing
Mm,
and just follow that.
yeah.
And that's how I really ended up in financial psychology. I had the first call with the woman at Creighton University, and she was describing the program. I'm like, in, done, sign me
You were like,
up.
yeah.
And then I met the professors, and then I met the other students that were in the class. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's so many other people out here that think
Yeah.
like this in the industry. And then I found this amazing group called Nasrudin, which is like a couple hundred people around the world that come together once a year. We really dive into a lot of the financial
Wow.
psychology topics. It's a beautiful experience. And actually, this year it was at Pendle Hill in Pennsylvania, which was really
Wow.
nice.
That is nice. So
Yeah.
there
So
so this is not a new, obviously it's we've thought about money this way for a long time, but this getting the science and the literature and the research behind this has come. So it's pretty new, isn't it? In a lot of
it is
ways.
pretty new. I mean, people have been studying this and working on it for decades,
Yeah.
for probably 30 some years. But it's now, like you said, we don't talk about money and politics and sex, but like all of that is changing.
Yeah.
And that's such a great thing because it's bringing these conversations to the table, and more people are talking about money, and more
Yeah.
people are talking about emotions, and more people are talking about the stories that and the experiences that they've had that are affecting their relationship with money. And then they're rewriting them.
You
They're
can rewrite your
changing the
stories. Yeah.
story. You
We
can
can.
rewrite your story.
Yeah, but we need to know the story we're telling them. So now you're really speaking my language, right? Because we
Right.
are always telling ourselves a story, always.
Always telling ourselves a story.
Whether it's about money, about ourselves, the number of times I've said to women in particular, what do you say to yourself in the morning? Is it like, I look fabulous? Or is it, you piece of shit, what are you doing here,
Right.
right? But we don't,
Yeah.
if we talk, how we talk to ourselves, whether we're saying it out loud, it matters. So
Yeah,
these
it
things
does.
form so early, we're not even aware we're saying those things to ourselves, right? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So how do you mind sharing, like, what's your, how did you figure this out about yourself? Like, where did you want to, why
Yeah.
did you want to go into money? There's got to be some money script there that you went into financial planning.
So this is part of the work that there's a lot of work that I had to do working for this degree. One of the first papers that I had to write was a 15-page paper on my own money psyche.
Okay.
So I had to go back and untangle my own money mess and think about all of the experiences that I had. Now, mind you, I had been in the industry for a while, so I didn't think I had this
Sure. You were like a
mess
therapist
of
who didn't think they had
things.
anything. Not
Right.
true, by the way. You want your
Right.
therapist to do their own work.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember one of the stories that I wrote in there's one story that has two different sides to it. I watched my parents, obviously. It's, something that we all do. Our caregivers, our parents, what they do with money and in their lives. And I learned from a very early age that money and education are essentially like freedom.
Mm,
And at, I think it was 12 years old, I basically demanded of my parents that I get a job. And I thought they were going
Wow.
to fight me on it. And they didn't. My mom was like, walk your little rear end around the corner and see if the bakery will give you a job. And I
Wow.
was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. And then by the time I was 15, I was ready to just like hang with my friends during the summer, right? 15-year-old, you're in high school. I was like, I'm done. I've been working at a bakery for a
I've
couple
been
years.
slaving since I was 12. It's
I
time.
know.
It's
It's
time I
time to
get a
take a
break.
break.
You were like
And
work burned out by 15. I love it.
well, it's funny what happened. So I remember telling my parents I wasn't going to get a job. I do not recall them giving me a hard time for that. But what I do remember is the first day of summer that year, my dad came in and he woke me up and he was like, Katie, time to get up. And I was
Huh.
like, what? I didn't get a job. What do you mean it's time to get up? And he was like, yes, you didn't get a job, but that didn't mean that you weren't going to work.
Oh.
And so my dad's such a like kind-hearted, jovial. He's a psychologist.
Okay. Well, then I'm
Um,
sorry. Let me apologize
yeah.
because it's terrible to have to be in a relationship with somebody in the field and or be the child of someone in the field. So my condolences.
Well, it's funny. It's funny how things come full circle.
Yeah.
So I go downstairs in the morning and there's a pair of paint overalls on the table. So my dad also had a painting and wallpapering company. And that summer, I was painting and wallpapering with my dad's company.
Wow.
Up very early in the morning, doing manual labor. I did it with my hair done and my nails painted. And I hated it. I loved the time with my dad.
Okay.
And I actually learned skills out of it, but I hated getting up so early in the morning. I
Yeah.
hated doing physical labor, but my dad paid me a lot of money. He paid
Okay.
me a lot of money. He
More
paid me
than the
like,
bakery?
if I remember, yeah.
Okay.
And it was in cash. So, he
Oh,
was funding my lifestyle anyhow.
yeah.
But he paid me like 80 to $100 a day. And I
Oh my
remember racking
gosh, that's a
up
lot of
like
money.
$2,000, like $4,000 to $5,000 that summer. And so what do you think I did the next year?
Painted
I
and
painted and
wallpaper.
wallpapered
Yeah.
because of the money. I
Yeah.
learned that early on that money was more important than my happiness. Now, I didn't realize that at the time,
Interesting.
but as I'm going through this writing of this story in this paper, the light bulb went on. And something else that contributed to me going into this field was
Well, wait, what was the light bulb?
the light bulb was money was more important than my happiness. It didn't matter that I hated what I was doing. It was where I was making the most money.
Interesting. Because that was the ticket to freedom, not to
Right.
happiness. Let me
Right.
just pause for a second here because I think this speaks to so many people. Because I remember a good friend of mine, her husband, who was friends as well, he had a big job at Lockheed Martin back in the day. And
Mhm.
he did not like this job. He just hated it. He wanted to start like a fishing, or hunting thing. I thought he won't like that either. But in his mind, it was freedom, right? And I remember he got another job offer, and he said I go, you're going to take it, right? Like it was a perfect smaller company, less. I don't know. And I go, what do you mean you don't know? And he goes, I have it pretty good here. Like I
Yep.
have it so good. I'm afraid, like, what am I giving up? Like even how much is enough? And then how are you giving up? This is part of what you're speaking to,
Mhm.
right? We stay
Mhm.
jailed by our belief of
Mhm.
more is better.
Right.
Mm,
We do. And it's even if change presents so many more opportunities,
yeah, it's
we
hard.
focus on the negative part, not how different life could be or how we could attain the more, whether it's time with our family or more experiences. It's not always more money
Yeah,
that we're looking for,
yeah,
but it's this factor of more.
yeah,
And that I learned that at a really young age. I didn't know it in my
yeah.
mind,
How much that
but I
formed you.
learned, yeah. But it also, I will tell you, while my parents are traditional, they did not sort of impose that on us. I mean, I was painting and wallpapering at
Yeah.
15. It was,
Yeah.
you are able bodied, you can do it. And I remember we would show up, we would paint commercial properties and personal properties. And I remember sometimes people being like, oh my God, so cute. Are you here to help
I
everybody?
know. You
Are you
look
going to
probably
set
like you
up?
should be on the brochure. I'm
Are you going to
imagining.
clean up?
Yeah.
Did you make everybody's lunch? And
Wow.
that lit a fire for me. It's
Yeah.
like, I can be here too.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can be here too. And so that I think contributed to going into a male dominated industry, saying
Oh,
like, we can
interesting.
be here.
Yeah. You belong at the table.
And we need to be here.
You do. We do
We
need to
need
be
to be
here.
here.
Yeah, women, because it, not that men can't help women and women can't help men. I'm not one of those believers, but I think because it has financially, I mean, we're pretty young, and just even women having more financial freedom and being income. I
Right.
mean, when you look at the time in
Yeah.
history, right? So women having coming to the table, and often as the ones who are the primary child rearing, they're often in a one
Hmm.
down position. So this is all
Right.
why it's important. You know, you're taking me back, because can I tell you my kind of my financial freedom story?
Please
so
do.
so I grew up in Hershey, Pennsylvania, two hands in the air, and so I worked from a young age too. But my dad was, he was a farmer, so I was either mowing
Mhm.
the lawn or pick up. There was always a chore. We had lists, so I appreciate the work ethic and the slave labor, by the way. But if I wanted money, I had to do stuff. I had to go earn it. That was
Right.
based. So I babysat from a young age. My first real job was at Hershey Park, and it was a paycheck, popcorn and cotton candy. By the way, you can't make that up.
Okay.
But I would get a paycheck, and it just didn't seem that great to me. And it was also that the job wasn't. If it was busy, it was great. But if I wasn't, I was just standing around doing nothing, which I
Hmm.
hated. Then I got a job at Pizza Hut, and I know that sounds glamorous, as it
It
is,
does.
but near the park. It was near the
Okay.
park. So Pizza Hut was the place. Like, you'd get slammed back in the day. And I would just run like a maniac, but I felt like I had control over my own destiny if I did a good job. Because if I waited the tables well, then I got a better
Hmm.
tip. And I also learned how to manage to the number of tables, because it wasn't high dollars relative to waitressing. But if I
Right.
got enough good turnover and I got a $5 tip back in the day, that was a good night. Like, I could, so it plays into my entrepreneurial spirit as a business person, that I can control my own destiny a little bit in terms
It
of
does.
money, rather than, because I remember laying out the cash on the floor
Hmm.
and looking at how much I was making, and it was such a different experience than just waiting for that paycheck to hit my mailbox at the time or whatever, and then look at it and go,
Right.
it's the same every week pretty much, and I don't like this. I liked that
Right.
feeling that I could make more than was predicted. It made me feel like I had more control.
So when did you realize that was a driver for you in your financial
I
life?
I
Did you know
knew
that at the
I knew
time?
that then. I knew that then. Um, I always was a little entrepreneurial. I was just I because I cared so much what people think. I didn't like to do the selling part. I didn't think.
Mhm.
I was always selling. I just didn't like to be considered a true salesperson. So if there was some like veil to it, I was really good at it. Probably would have gone into sales early in my life, because that's the first job I got offered. But I'm like, I'm not a salesperson. I help people. So I went knocking on people's doors as a family therapist to get around that. Like, no selling
Right.
there. So,
Right.
but yeah, I think I had some awareness. But I do see how that impacts me in terms of my own money beliefs, and that I'll figure it out if I need to make more. Like, I'll just figure it out. You know.
Mhm.
Um,
When you were working as a family therapist or
yeah.
psychologist, did you ever talk about money back then? Were families talking about that at all? Because it is a source of contention and
Yeah.
has been for a long time for a lot of people.
Yeah, this is so. I talked about money because my dad talked about money,
Hmm.
and just like emotions and other things, even though it wasn't, doesn't mean it was perfect and that all the things are in line. Sadly, so many people, and especially the people that I was working with, that money was not a luxury. It was a hand to mouth kind of thing. And so
Mm-hmm.
I do think so what I always did, I didn't make much money early in my career because in social work. Social workers aren't
Hmm.
paid much. So what I did was I always had a second job so that I could save money. So that was the hustle part. But there was so much else going on psychologically in the families that I was
Right.
serving that would have that. But it was a stressor. It was clearly a
Hmm.
stressor, and
Hmm.
I certainly saw how abysmally people live, unfortunately, and it's not for lack of trying. That it's
Right.
just really hard to get ahead when you have a lot of factors working against you. So yeah,
Yeah.
so it also is, it's humbling to realize how much we have. Even,
Hmm.
I'm not the richest person in the world, but that money, to me, there's only so much of it that you actually need at a certain
It
point.
Yeah, it goes back to that enough. What is
Hmm.
enough? And
Yeah.
it's so personal and it depends. It's what do you value? Is it time? Is it money? Is it stuff? Is it experiences? I
Is it
mean,
success? Is it? I was listening to
right.
Dax Shepard's Armchair, his podcast, and with the guests, they were talking about, like, do you feel like you're successful? And I think it's the same thing. It's, what are we measuring our
Hmm.
success by? And money, that's another part of this, right? And it's like, even the richest people can feel like it's not enough. And that's not
Hmm.
because they don't have enough money. That goes back into your work,
Yeah.
which is, tell us more. Why? Why is that the feeling, even if they're billionaires? What goes on
Right.
sometimes? I mean, you've seen
Because
that world.
the money is just that's the easiest, that's the common denominator. People
Yeah.
can talk numbers, but and two people might be chasing returns
Yeah.
like in the stock market. But what does that actually mean? That's what we get to, because it's not a percent is a percent.
Yeah.
It's like, what are you going to do with that money? Do you want to buy, are you looking to buy a vacation home because you want to spend more time with your family because you know it's fleeting? Like your kids are
Yeah.
going to go off to college soon and you want to have a place where you can create memories with them.
Yeah.
There's always something deeper than what is on the surface. And that's what we try to get to, because
Mm,
in that exploration, you find out what is enough for you.
yeah. So
I
what's
think
the
about it
question?
more as of life design than financial planning and investment.
Interesting. Yeah. And you have to design it to make it happen, because it doesn't always happen on its own. That's the other thing,
It
right? Or it will.
doesn't. And
Yeah.
right. And people don't necessarily want to dive in to the conversation about money. If I say, all right, let's go, we're going to start to work on your financial
Yeah.
plan, people are like, oh, but I'm
Yeah.
like, tell me what your life is like and what are you looking to change? Like, what do you see happening in the next couple of years? What do you want to happen?
Yeah.
It's so much easier for people to talk about that.
Then in the
That's the
present.
design.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And then the money, the plan and the investments are the tool to make that work.
So, but how do you get people to go back? Because that's harder, isn't it? Going forward is the wish, but going
Hmm.
back is the reality. So, how do you get? So, what's a question? Not everybody's going to have the privilege to work with you. So, what's the question we need to be asking ourselves to find the money thief that's in there, that's
Money thief.
stealing our
The one that's robbing you
that is
of your
robbing you
financial
of your.
freedom.
That's right.
I have to thank Christine for that one. Um, I it does go back to your money memories. And what I ask people to do is pay attention.
Okay.
Like the first thing is pay attention to what happens when you're spending your money,
Mm.
or when you come up like, I really wanted to save that money, but I ended up blowing it on whatever,
Yeah.
whatever you like, a handbag, shoes, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And start to think back as early as you can. What is a money memory that you have? Was it
Mm.
you asked for something for Christmas and you didn't get it? Like, because
Yeah.
it's not always a transaction
Yeah. It's a
with dollar
feeling.
bills
Yeah.
that creates the memory. It's an interaction, or it's a circumstance or a situation that you find yourself in. You want to go with your friends to the park, but you can't because you don't have the money to do it.
Yeah.
Just start to think back. And sometimes, like, I couldn't go, when I started to think about my own, I couldn't go back that far. But the interesting thing that happened was, as soon as I unlocked one memory, over time,
Yeah. The others come
more
flooding.
started to surface for
Yeah.
me. And when you pay attention to what you're doing with money and you kind of open that door, things will start to connect.
Yeah.
it might not happen right now, but it's pay attention, think about your early money memories and what is the connection there? Can you figure a lesson that you've learned over time because of that and see how it shows up in your life?
Yeah, because it does. It's so funny because as you're talking, I remember this one time, and my dad he knew what he was doing. I got it, he used a lot of
Mhm.
psychology with me. By the way, my parents did a lot of the wrong things, a lot of the right things for the wrong reasons, by the way. Let me just be clear. That's how dysfunctional my family was. So dysfunctional in so many ways. But I remember I was driving, and again, I got an allowance based on a pretty long list of chores. So it didn't come free. And I appreciate that work ethic. I still need a clean car to this day because my father made me clean his car for a weekly chore. But he said to me, he was going to give me an allowance, and he did something like, do you want $20 a week, or do you want it in gas money? And I said, I figured out very quickly. I can still remember where I was standing on the stairs in our house. And I did this calculation of, well, the gas money is going to add up more than 20, bucks a week at the time. And I went, I'll take it in the gas money. And he went like, he knew I got him. He was like, he knew I figured that out faster than him. And he goes, the allowance it is. And I was so mad because I was like, I just beat him at his own game for the first time.
Right.
And again, I can see how, as a negotiator, and sometimes of the things I've had, and even teaching people about negotiation, how these kinds of things come into play in my own life, so it's all
That's so
there.
funny.
I'll never,
It's
I was so
there.
bitter at that moment, but it's often rooted in negative memories as well.
It is.
It's not always such a, well, I'm not sure that's a positive memory, just to be fair, but
It's
it's a memory.
I mean, beating your dad at his own game has to be a positive
It
memory.
was a moment, but he was still in control, which is,
Right.
we'll go to my
Right.
therapist next. Here's the other thing
Right.
that I'm thinking about, Kate, is just for the listeners. So Kate's an amazing speaker. So not only is she
Thank you.
doing the work, helping clients, she's also, and helping them thrive through the psychology of money. She's also now starting to educate others and audiences speaking. So we've had the privilege to be in a speakers group together. And, I see why we're so bonded. One, because my dad was a financial planner and your dad was a
This is
psychologist. So we are the mirror
funny.
experiences of each
Uh-huh.
other. So, but yeah,
That's
people
so funny.
they got to hear you talk about this, because one of the things you do is you talk about these different money personas in your speech, don't you? And how
I
they show
do.
up. So give
I
us,
do.
and I'm just going to step off the camera while you're telling me this for a second, as to let my cat out of the office, to be real on our podcast, because she's gonna climb off the wall. But I want you to talk about one or two of the listening, the money thieves for me, because you talk openly about a story about you buying a lot of shoes and handbags at one point in your life, right?
I do. Yeah, it's funny. So there are, I guess we could say, these categories of money scripts, broad.
Okay.
And it's money avoidance, people who stick their head in the sand. You've got money vigilance, people who are like super tight with their money. You've got money status, where your net worth might equal your
Self-worth.
self-worth. You've got money focus. But we talked about, one of the funny things that we talked about, which is part of one of these personas, is financial infidelity.
Oh,
Which is
let's go here. Yeah.
something that comes up. And I'll never forget when we were, you and I were in Lambertville.
Yeah.
And we were in the B&B that you were staying in during one of our speaking.
And I was
group,
probably eating Three Musketeers bars as I was talking to you, or Snickers from the snack thing.
Talk about amazing speakers. Christine is one of the best out there, one of my mentors. So thank you for all that you do.
Sure.
And she just happened upon this room of people who were staying
right.
at the inn.
That's right. We were
over
not
the
alone.
holiday season, and we were not alone. And so we did some of our speech in front of this group, and the one that I did was the financial infidelity. And this this group of people was probably between, would you say 65 and 75?
Yeah, that's closer to
In
my age than I'd like to admit in some ways. So I want to up that, but you're probably right. You're probably right.
So
Older
it
folks.
could have been,
Yeah.
maybe it was 70
I'm going to say
to 80,
70s. Yeah. Okay.
but it was funny because this story, like talking about financial infidelity, the
What is
women,
financial
everybody was
infidelity? Just tell
so
us what it
funny. I
is.
was just going to tell that.
Okay.
Okay. So financial infidelity is basically when you buy a ton of stuff and then you hide it
Okay. So you're
from
cheating
your
with your
partner.
checkbook, so to speak,
You're
or your
cheating
credit
with your
card.
checkbook. Yeah, I
Okay.
like that. So, and it was funny because, one of the things that I was saying to this group of people is like, have you ever found yourself doing such a thing? Like, I remember there was a point in time where I would go on these like shopping sprees and I would have armfuls of bags. They'd be in my trunk and I'd be like, who's home right now? Like, how do I get this
Yeah. In the door.
in the closet? Like tags off. So I'd get in the driveway, no one be home, and I'd be like, this is fantastic. I'd take all of my bags, I'd get them inside, I'd try on all of my
Yeah.
things,
Yeah.
rip all of the tags off, and then strategically place them in the closet and the
Yeah.
drawers as if they had been there
Right.
forever.
Right.
Like, and the group, when I was talking about this, the
I'll
group
never
started
forget this.
laughing.
They've all
They
done
all
it.
started laughing because they have all
Men too.
done it.
Men too.
Men too. They have all done it.
Yeah.
And I remember at one point being like, what am I doing? Like,
Yeah.
why am I doing this? Because it's not, I was making my own money, and it just was really interesting because there are these things, you could say it's learned, it's inherited, you're watching it happen, you end
Yeah.
up doing it, and then all of a sudden it's like, what am I doing and why? It
Yeah.
can be like they all laughed. The
Yeah.
whole group laughed when I said it.
Yeah.
But it was really what is happening underneath the surface. It's funny. We can all laugh about it, but
Yeah.
like what's actually happening in the relationship?
Yeah. Yeah. If we understand it, we can either free ourselves from saying, "Hey, I don't need to hide the bags because it's okay because this is a decision
Right.
and not and but part of the problem is we don't talk about money in marriages either or
Right.
relationships. Now people have their own money more often in relationships. So but there's an underbelly to all this, right? There's an underbelly. So, but I do like how you, you make it easier for us to look at ourselves and laugh because we do relate to it. We all have done aspects. Look, I'm someone who, will eat the little Reese's peanut butter cups instead of the full size so that I can tell myself I didn't have a full candy bar, as evidenced by my Three Musketeers reference. Or, I'll eat the inside of the Oreos and not the outside, and I don't think I've had as many cookies. So there's we all have these little tricks that we do to convince ourselves as well as other people that we're not doing what we're doing, but there's a reason behind it, right?
Right. I'm sorry. You just froze for like 30
Oh, I'm
seconds
sorry.
on me.
I froze.
Okay.
It's
So
okay.
I missed what you said.
I said we all do things to kind of convince ourselves that we're not doing what we're actually doing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And start to explore those things. Like, why
Yeah.
am I doing this? How is it helping me? How is it hurting me?
So how
Do I
does
need
it
to be doing this?
and how does it so when we dig into our earliest memories, when we go back and then you're kind of bookending it, we go back and we look at where did these things form and then we design our future. How does that help us? Does it really work, Kate?
So I'll tell you, it worked for me. Like I had to do the work. I had to do the work myself. And here's what I'll say is that every single solitary behavior makes sense when you know the why behind it.
Absolutely.
When you figure out what the origin story is it makes sense. And back to the painting story, when I realized I had connected, or learned in my body that money was more important than my happiness,
Yeah.
I had to sit with that and I say, okay, is this true? Do I actually believe that? Do I believe that chasing money is more important than a fulfilling life every day? And in my heart, the answer is no.
Yeah.
It's not, but I had been carrying this with me. It had been driving my
Yeah.
decisions without my even knowing it. And once I recognized that, and once I pieced that together, and once I realized I created a belief that was not rooted in like true honesty and fact for me, I said, do I need to keep this belief? The answer is no. Okay, so
Mm.
now what am I going to do?
Yeah.
What do I think? I
Yeah.
think that living a fulfilling life, and that's relationships and
Yeah.
other like creative endeavors outside of work. But yes, like the work that I do, I believe that I can be truly happy and fulfilled and not necessarily chase every last
Yeah.
dollar.
Yeah.
And so I built, what is my life going to look like as a fulfilling, joyful life? And that's going to be the new message for me. That's going to be how I design my future. And that's
Yeah.
exactly like once I did that, so many things started to fall
Well, it's also
into
part of why you
place.
went back to school. It's part of why you
Right.
are focusing on speaking. You could probably make more money at your day job, right?
Right.
But when's enough, right? You've painted enough
Yeah.
houses or you've done it.
Right.
So that I think that's the perfect place to kind of I could talk to you forever, but I think that's
Yeah. I know.
the perfect time, and we will talk forever, probably over dinner,
Yeah.
but that's such an important thing that it doesn't mean you have to rewrite your life. It just means you're going to do it
No.
more consciously, and when you're
Hmm.
intentional, that helps you, get to where you actually want to be. This is what I call an aspect of listening to yourself.
Hmm.
It's about listening and understanding yourself, and we're not used to going back and uncovering those stories. And finances is one of them, relationships part of it, all these things. But
Right.
relationship with money helps us because money's a resource we need to survive, and it can really lock us up, and it can really hurt a lot of
Okay.
relationships, can it?
Yes, it does. Money makes people act funny because it's a metaphor. It is a currency that we need every single day to live,
Yeah.
but it is also a metaphor for power,
Mm.
control, acknowledgement, security, for freedom, for feeling love and accepted.
Yeah.
Like there's so many emotions around it, and it can absolutely interfere in relationships.
Yeah. I mean, that should be our next conversation. We might have to continue this. How much this impacts not
Yeah.
only us, but seriously, but our relationships when we don't learn
Mhm.
to not only have a dialogue with ourselves, but each other in our lives. And even
Right.
when we help somebody, or it can really be a problem. So, but this is,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm fascinated because of my stairs, my story about my father in the,
Yeah.
in the in the stairs of my house, and how I finally got him. No, I didn't, but
I'm sure that's one of many.
it's one of
One of
many
many.
lessons that he taught me. But
Yeah.
how can people find you? I mean, in terms of speaking, and if they want to work with you or learn more from you.
So I am on LinkedIn. That is the one social media site that I'm on.
Right.
You can also find me at bmt.com.
What does that
Um,
stand for?
that stands for Bryn Mawr Trust.
Oh, BrynMawrTrust.com.
Yep.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
bmt.com and LinkedIn are the two places that you can find me
All
out
right.
there.
Okay, great. Well,
Yes.
I just think you're delightful. And I'm so
Well,
thrilled
right
to
back at you, my friend. I
I'm
am
so
so thrilled to have been here today.
yeah. Well, what I know about you is that when people come into your orbit, they don't want to leave. So
Oh,
whether that's
thank you.
clients or friends. So if you want to learn more about Kate, if you want her to speak, please reach out to Kate because she'll make an impact. So thank you for being here, and
Thank
thank
you,
you.
Christine.
You're
Thank you for
welcome.
the invite.
You're
And thank you
welcome.
for all that you do. You are just a gift of a friend.
So, likewise. All right, everyone. Thank you for listening today. We'll see you next time on Shine a Light.